Hello and welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. For those of you who don't know, I run the website, smellslikeinfinitesadness.com. It's a blog covering the best alternative rock from the 80s and 90s up to present day. I'm a proud middle-aged Gen Xer who is still obsessed with the music of his youth and loves to talk about it.
And on today's episode, I'll be talking to super producer, musician, and DJ Danny Saber, known for his work with U2, Madonna, David Bowie, Public Enemy, Black Grape, and many others. Today, Saber and I talk about One Way. It's a 10-inch picture disc featuring the B-side Save My Life, out August 9th via Boss Sonics. The songs are both from late INXS frontman Michael Hutchence, who Saber first worked with on solo material back in the late 90s. One Way and Save My Life are fertile reminders of why Hutchence was such a powerhouse in his day, in both his INXS output and other musical projects. And Saber has spent considerable blood, sweat, and tears refining their recording sessions together for maximum impact upon fan and newcomers alike. In our chat, we talk about Hutchence' musical legacy and mystique, his favorite memories of working with the frontman, why Saber thinks he still holds so much appeal today, plans for future releases of Hutchence's material, and much more. And stay tuned afterwards while I'll be playing One Way, a song which shows a whole new dimension to an already versatile and charismatic performer. My initial question is, when did you first meet Michael Hutchence? What were the initial recording sessions like? And then what decided all these years later that this is the time to get these in shape and put them out for the world to finally hear?
Wow, well, that's like 5 questions, man. Let's start with the first one. So when I met Michael, you might have to remind me because I ended up going all the way over there to come back to here. So Michael reached out to me because he was a very big fan of that poster sitting behind me, the Black Grape record. And as I've always said, a big reason Michael was even doing a solo record is because he was one of those guys that was always on a mission to discover new music. And, one of those people, he was compelled to do what he did. And I think, and again, it's no knock on INXS at all. It happens with all bands, especially bands that get that big, which are very few. A lot of times it becomes about maintaining what you have. There's always that sort of push and pull between, when you have that much success, it's an operation, you know what I mean? And at the core of it is sort of that dynamic of maintaining what you have and then taking risks and pushing it out and seeing how much further you can go creatively. So I think the solo stuff outside the band was a way for Michael to be free to, pursue that need he had, fill that sort of, scratch that itch, so to speak, And he reached out to me because he was a fan of Black Grape, and I think he heard something in that record, in the way I was blending live music and samples, which, let's be honest, INXS is probably the best band ever at doing that. They were the first, at least, to have massive success taking guitars and beats and mixing funk. I mean, some of those songs, it was funky as you could ever ask. And, I've said that too, that Michael sort of maybe didn't get taken as seriously as he deserved as a lyricist, and both him and Andrew as writers, because it was sort of wrapped in dance music.
Yeah.
He was tackling some pretty serious, substantive, lyrical ideas in the, interracial relationships and, all kinds of stuff. So Michael was a fantastic lyricist, and he reached out to me and sent me, I think initially, I can't remember if it started with the phone call or I heard some music first, but I heard a batch of songs he had been writing with Andy Gill, and they were just sort of gearing up to kind of, because in those days you wrote songs and then you went and made a record. And Andy, like myself, who had a project studio, and like with all the records I've ever made, the demos at the very least 9 out of 10 times are the foundation for whatever the final record's going to be. Because there's usually it wasn't like in the 50s where you went and did a demonstration recording and then they went, it's all connected. And I heard some of that stuff and it was really cool. I mean, I really dug what I heard, and I got on the phone with him and it took all of about 30 seconds for him to charm the pants off you. And to be honest, he was the first person that wanted to hire me. Like, I was just excited somebody that big wanted to work with me, because I just had this bit record and I was working a little bit, but I had a #1 record, and it was kind of cool. And he opened up a lot of doors. So that was sort of how we got started thing. And then I went over to England and we started from there.
So when did you decide all these years later to start working these songs and finally get them released? When you were like, this is time to start working on this, and what was it like beginning that process?
Starting with it, so then obviously we had about a 2-year period of working together while he was alive, and initially, like, it was more to kind of the production and the sound he was looking for, which then grew into us writing on our own together. And when he passed away, then we had about 12 songs in the can that he had sort of been there from beginning to end through. The stuff my co-writes were really sort of all done at the tail end, and it was sort of starting to evolve. And I had he lived, I mean, we would have obviously come back but I would say it's like singers like Michael and Bono and Mick, they're always on. So it's not a thing where, like, you send Mick Jagger in to go do 15 vocal takes and it's like sculpting with those guys. And the demo recording may be the foundation of the final vocal, and you'll keep chipping away at it. And, they'll do another take, of course, or two, but a lot of times you end up coming back to those first vocals because those are the moment of inspiration, and then just refining it and refining it. So we would have done that. But then he passed away, and, it took a little time, and then that record sort of got finished and licensed to V2. They released it. And, it did okay. It came out, it did really good in Australia, but there was no one to promote it. And it was early days of V2. It might have been their second or third release. And got to about 10 years later, and, a bunch of material sort of surfaced. And that was stuff he had sort of been, he had his own little studio. So he may have gone in, with an engineer and made some beats. It was all very loose, fragmented sort of ideas that he had been amassing, probably, some of it between the time, he found Andy and Max Q, and then, stuff he was doing on the side, and just a bunch of shit. And there was like 30 ideas that were all on 2-inch tape. And again, it wasn't like, it was like Cat Stevens and there was a guy with an acoustic guitar and here are the songs. And, it was just very, very like random, raw stuff. But we started going through it and realized, there's something here. But then what are we going to do with it? Because we had done this solo record 10 years earlier, and, we needed some way to promote it. And that's sort of what led to the movie getting made. And that took another 7 or 8 years, going through this process of different directors and getting close and having the director not having the money or whatever. And we finally hooked up with this guy, Mark Llewellyn, in Channel 7 Australia in 2017. He was amazing, and he really went to the ends of the earth to make this thing happen. And the plan was, the movie aired on Australian television, so we were going to recut the film. It was over 2 nights, cut it down to like feature length, and then we were going to release the music internationally with the film because it only aired in Australia. It was limited to in Australia. You have the rights to recut it, sell it, and distribute it the rest of the world. But that didn't end up working out for a bunch of reasons. Then COVID hit. It's opened a position out of late 2023 where it was finally like, you know what? Let's just put something out, because the fans had known about it for years. And I was always getting emails and Facebook messages and, hey, when is the music? Is it ever going to come out? Is it ever, and so it just kind of, everything sort of fell into place, and the opportunity to drop the single came out. We just sort of did it.
Was the movie, are you talking about the biopic of the band or are you talking about the documentary about?
That was Never Tear Us Apart. That was made before. The movie I produced was called The Last Rock Star.
Okay. Yeah. So that was, so that's not,
and it's, some people have seen it. I mean, it's been living on YouTube. And it did, look, it was really well received. It was nominated for like the equivalent of an Emmy down there. It was a 2-night thing. But it was made by the same network, Channel 7, who had done Never Tear Us Apart. It was different people, but it was the same sort of company. And that was the way we got it made. And the idea was always to recut it, get rid of the TMZ, well, the tabloid narrator, get somebody cool, Johnny Depp or something, recut it, then have all the music released. But again, it just didn't shake out that way. That was the intention, but it just didn't work out. So it was like, enough, let's get something out. The timing's right. There was a big movement to get them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And, the best part about it has been the reception. I mean, it's like I was, never could control how people are going to feel about something. So we put it out with the like hoping, it would sort of help to shift the perception around Michael and really get the focus back to how great of a performer he was and how great the band was and get as far away from the circumstances of his death as we could. And it's worked. I mean, the reception's been fantastic. So that was sort of, yeah.
When you were hearing these songs after such a long time, I know for me as a fan of INXS and Michael Hutchence, that when I heard him singing something I never heard before, it kind of hit me like I was like, oh yeah, this is the voice, not for the songs I've heard 5 million times, but like a song that I never heard before. It was interesting. I don't know. Did you feel kind of an emotional reaction when you heard working in that after all these years and putting those together, hearing his voice again?
Yeah, man, there's moments of that. Like, that probably more back when, because what happened was, after he passed, I mean, I couldn't even listen to this shit for at least a year. It took a year before I even wanted to even think about it, and back in '99, around when I finished the Michael Hutchence record, back then it was more of that. But I think what's been great about this is, and I've been working on this over 10 years, like over a really long period of time. So I've had an opportunity to come and go back and come and go back. And yeah, there are moments even still I've been repurposing. I've been cutting some of the last stuff to sort of, make little shorts and stuff to kind of help promote the release and give a context for the music. Things I've cut a couple of times where it'll just hit you out of nowhere. But for the most part, for me, it's more of a positive thing because it's all this time people still care and they still, his fan base is so passionate. I mean, he's got the most unique fan base, I think, of anybody. And I've been pretty lucky to work with some really big bands, and every band has a culture around it, like the Stones have a culture and the fan base there's a culture to it. You do have their own culture. And the same with INXS, especially, but with Michael, and I think a lot of it has to do with, just his whole energy and his whole vibe. And, like in the movie, Peter Wilson was close. Peter Wilson from Femme Nikita was a good friend. And she said he had like this kind of cat-like androgynous thing where he could be your best friend and he could be like your lover. All his exes were friends with him. And his energy was really, really unique. And he inspires a lot of passion in the fan base, and it's still going stronger than ever, So to hear that from you is great because that's the whole thing. That's the best thing that can come out of it is hearing his voice again on something fresh. The response has been amazing, and that's precisely why. Because, like you said, it's hearing his voice again, but hearing it on something new that you didn't know was there, and it's fresh and it's up now, but it's connected to then, and it kind of helps to bridge. I think it has actually a potential, to tell a way bigger story than just Michael. I mean, it's really everything that's gone down over the last 25 years. The way the media, the way that like for instance, and this is stuff we're going to explore if we get to do a new movie, which is hopefully we can go to some sort of show around this music and Michael. But one of the things I really want to show is, just how much the culture has changed. Like all the things like, with the tabloid culture, Michael and Princess Diana, Versace all died within like a 3-month period of each other.
Yeah.
And especially with Diana and Michael, they were being crucified relentlessly by the paparazzi. And I mean, I experienced it firsthand. I went out with Michael, which for me, it was kind of, fun. Hey, we're touching the paparazzi, but nightmare for him. Worst nightmare was to start to be perceived as this sort of like joke of like, he's becoming more famous for being famous and his antics than because he's a great front man. And in those days, that was the worst thing that could happen to you. But now empires are built off of that, right?
Yeah.
So those type of things, it really shows there's a real clear sort of, I guess, dichotomy to all the things that have changed over this period of time. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of like angles like that, the talent show culture, like, that's what we call it, the last rock star. Because, again, he had some really great, she said, the last generation of like guys like, really Nirvana, Jane's Addiction, and those are all guys my age. where you had to play. You had to be able to play and sing, and you had to put it all together, and as a to really get over it. That won the high school talent show ended up living in a trailer or something. It was the guys that were ditching school and spoken. And now it's completely flipped. The same in hip hop, man. I mean, hip hop was the most groundbreaking sort of original extension of the art form. And again, it's all been, subsidized or commodity. What's the right word? It's all been like taken over by the man now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot has to do with the talent show. I mean, that's what's held up as the standard now. It's like the talent show paradigm is biggest artists in the world are all, kind of fitting that same little wheel.
Yeah.
Not to knock anybody, it's the world we live in, but it's be nice to be reminded, there's other ways to look at this, and there's other ways to do this, and there's other ways, to come at it. And here's a reminder.
When you were working on these tracks, were they pretty skeletal at first? Was it mainly just the vocals that you had? How long did it take you to piece together the different parts of the music?
That's all I had. Yeah, and there's one like that I actually kind of stumbled on that me and him had written that I wasn't lost, but I kind of forgot we did it, and I found it, and like a lot of like one of the cool thing that's happened is that's like the technology advances over the time period of finding it. Like, I'll give you an example. I found this song that will eventually be heard that's fucking amazing, and I only had it on DAT. I don't have the a lot of the stuff's disappeared. Like the original masters of some of the stuff that I did with. I have all the other stuff, but my masters for some reason have vanished, and I'm able to now go in with AI and pull out the vocal and pull out the drums and pull out the bass, which it's mainly being able to pull out the vocal. So It opens up so many fucking doors that I didn't have 5 years ago, and that's what this song I found. There's one I actually made from a cassette. I built it from a cassette tape, but now I then eventually was able to pull the vocals out of it. But having that option is just huge. But most of it was on 2-inch tape. And it was just, like I said, ideas. They were ideas. And there's a couple that were a little more developed, but I literally took the vocal and built the music around the vocal. I purposely didn't listen to anything because it was all, it was just, here's a Pro Tools session, which was kind of the best way to come at it. A lot of it was just audio 1022, audio 1033, audio 1044. Like, it was just, so it was kind of a bit of a detective thing,
Well, I think it's cool because you have the two songs in here, and you have a pretty interesting mix. Because one way is probably the heaviest thing he's ever done. I mean, it's a lot more aggressive, I think, than INXS was, and then Save My Life is really just kind of more like a not trancy, but very kind of tranquil symphonic vibe to it. So I think it's cool that you've got two very, very different songs that represent them. Were there any surprises that hearing these songs again, that things that popped out at you that you didn't notice initially?
Well, no, because again, I just sort of, it's like the thing has been coming, going and coming and going. And, I mean, maybe even getting away from a song for a period of years and then being able to come back and chip away at it. Like with One Way, when I started that song, and that was always a thing, like me and Michael sort of had these conversations. And one of the things we talked about was after that whole Oasis debacle, which was just really ridiculous because we were all hanging out together. Because I was there with Black Grape. We were like nominated for Best New Artist. Oasis was there. That was like, I think the year like Wonderwall. So they were ruling the world. And Michael was there to kind of present an award. But like Liam was at our table, like, because of Sean, the Manchester connection. So we were all hanging out. And then they get on stage and Noel, makes these bitchy remarks. And the next day we're in the studio and I kind of made a crack about it. And he was really fucking hurt. And I just looked at him and I'm like, dude, come on, man. You can't let that bother you. And they weren't really Oasis like they are now yet. And he was fucking mine. And it's like, dude, it really, because that meant so much to him, the respect of his peers.
Yeah.
And we made a deal. I just said, dude, look, it's simple. Let's just make this shit so good that if anybody fucking says anything negative about it, they look like idiots. They look like assholes. And that was one of the tenets, along with the only rules are there's no rules. We're going to go wherever the music takes us. And at the very least, if we go to the wrong place, we'll end up in the right place, right? I always sort of saw him as more like, I think most people look at him as a singer and they think Mick Jagger, maybe with the, like Jim Morrison sort of energy. But I saw more Robert Plant. I always saw him more like he's got his own key and does those bends. So I always was like trying to push the guitar stuff out. It's like when it called for it. But what was so great about coming back to it was at one point, like literally, probably within the last, at least within 6 months before it ended up coming out, I still have been working on the middle eight where it's sort of that cashmere sort of Zeppelin-y thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
I was still missing something. And I ended up sort of becoming friendly with Nick McCabe from The Verve. It was
nice.
Because The Verve, because that record was out. I remember it was just sort of coming out right before Michael passed. And he liked that band a lot. And I'm like, Nick, I got this thing and it's still missing something. I'm not sure what it needs. He goes, send me it, mate. I'll throw down some shit. And he ended up giving me so much cool shit. But the main thing was like so that's him in the in the middle eight. But then he gave me so much cool stuff that we're doing a CD maxi single. This guy Adam Whitaker out of the UK, because I'm like, I've had enough here. I'm sending you all these parts. I go, let's do a new mix, but let's build them around Nick's parts because he gave us so much to work with. So the fact that Nick McCabe's on the record, the time was allowed for that. Michael would fucking love that Nick was on the record, because he loved the Verve. And again, it's that respect theme, and so it all kind of came full circle.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that and would say, because there was, again, when the vocals told me what to do. I've had a long history of doing this. I've done it with David Bowie. When you get a vocal like with David Bowie, that Little Wonder thing, which I don't know if you remember the original version of Little Wonder, but it was very drum and bass and electronic. And, he was doing his best to piss everybody off because he loved that. He's one of my best friends. I fucking think he's one of the best guitar players ever. But he loved doing all that sort of annoying, bombastic shit because he knows it pisses off half the Bowie fans. But for me, and he said it was like playing Cowboys and Indians. I just took the vocal, locked it to a click, and I literally heard fucking my version of Space Oddity finish. I grabbed an acoustic, started playing to the vocal, and the vocal told me where to go. And the same thing happened with One Way. It happened with Save My Life. And don't forget, too, these songs were done in the context, Save My Life at least. I'm like, oh, wow, this could be really cinematic. Maybe like Seal. I was thinking like something Seal would do, or Trevor Horn, like more of that. Because Michael could cover that thing, too. He had so much range, and there was so many places to go. And it was like, never run out of ideas. I've got 2 songs that nobody's heard yet. Like, nobody's heard. And one of them is like DJ Shadow meets Led Zeppelin or like just Aerosmith, but like real Aerosmith,
Classic.
Meets DJ Shadow if Neil Peart was playing drums. And then nice. I got another one where it's sort of got that sort of Manchester-y, but it's like U2, like was always very influenced, Bono told me, by like the Mondays and when they did like Mysterious Ways. It's got sort of that kind of vibe, but then it's got this funky chorus and very fucking Michael in the chorus. It's almost kind of Stonesy, primal screamish chorus. And it's like, but the vocals told me where to go, and it's endless with that guy. I mean, his range is just ridiculous. When I say range, it's not just his vocal range, but the genres he could pull off. I mean, look at INXS. You take a song like Never Tear Us Apart. It's arguably one of the greatest ballads, kind of more chill songs ever written.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, name 100 of them. Suicide Blonde is like kind of rootsy rock and roll. Need You Tonight is funky as so they did it too. I think it's like just the fringes now, the edges, going a little further out and just throwing some stuff at the wall that maybe they just wouldn't because that's just not in their wheelhouse as players, So I really appreciate the fact you picked up on that because that's kind of what I was trying to do.
Well, I definitely did. And I guess I'm wondering, since you have this reflection of so long between his passing and working on this, do you have any of your favorite memories of working with him in the studio that come to mind, like anything that fans might find interesting or unexpected or just even something humorous that he did that that sticks
So
out?
there was a lot of that. Yeah. Well, one of the funny things that was really hilarious, as much as he hated having to like touch the paparazzi and be stopped and shit, I'm like, all right, dude, we're going up to Real World. Because my whole thing was I in a Real World, Peter Gabriel's studio, but it was up in Bath. I saw the Mix magazine with the U-shaped console, and I ended up locking out every room in there at one point. And I think I was in with Michael, who was the band Agent Provocateur, and then Black Crate Kid, and we did a single all at the same time. It was like amazing. But so now we're up in Bath, we're outside of London, and we're like, all right, because he's like, I don't want to go to the country. I'm like, come on, bro, it'll be good for you to get away from all the fucking distractions, all the drama, all the fucking stress, and just we can go up there, be good for you, man. And I remember there was this hotel that was like, you were staying at the studio, they had like a steam room, and like, we're going to the steam room, man. Come on, let's go purge. So we can start over tonight, but let's go sweat it out, right? And I remember at one point he was just climbing the walls to get back to the fucking city, man. It lasted about a week up there, and we had to get back to London. He just wasn't having it. He needed the action. Definitely needed action, and I'm like one of those guys too, who went out every night from whatever 22 to 37 or something. But he was right at that age where he was starting to get old. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty funny. And I don't know, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, it's hard to remember specifics, and there's a lot of stuff I can't really tell you. But one thing, I just can't like it. I can't say it, man. It's too risque.
Well,
you guys can use your imagination on that.
I will do my best.
The dynamic between him and Andy was really funny too. Working it because the thing about Andy that was kind of funny is the first thing I did was I actually met Andy before I met Michael because they were working out of Andy's flat. So now I'm in London and I've heard the songs and it's all, so we're going to kind of try it out or whatever. So we just like, and it's like Andy Gill's like the guitar player of Gang of Four, man. They're like the Gang of Four, It's like I'm expecting to meet like Shay, it's going to some underground cave with Che Guevara posters. And so I get off the train at Tower Station, I go across the bridge, and I'm like looking up and there's these flats and they're like fucking amazing, man. Like something straight out of Architectural Digest, So knock on the door, I'm like, this is the right place. And door opens and it's like, in cartoons when the smell comes out, like it's a smell, but it's like, this smell hit me. And it's like the most amazing thing I've ever fucking smelled in my life. And I'm like, hi, Andy. Where does that smell, bro? He goes, oh, I'll just go to a bit of lobster stock going on the stove. And Andy was like a gourmet chef. He actually got a side gig writing. Like he would go stay in hotels and eat in the restaurant and write about it. Like,
oh, really?
Sure, he did. Yeah, he was a writer. And he was, anyway, he was like a chef, master chef, man. So he's cooking this shit. I'm gourmet shit. The house is amazing. And when we went into the studio called Nomis, there was a like a cook. So you could go, because it was a rehearsal studio and they had like one recording studio, I think. And so, but there was like a kitchen. It was the kind of guy who would have been cooking on an oil tanker for a bunch of men, And Andy would come in, bro, today we're going to have steak au poivre and like, so just stuff like that. It was super, super funny, man. Flatting the menu and yeah, there was a lot of fun, but there was some other stuff. But more, we'll leave that for the book.
All right, we'll leave it for the book. So after this release, how much more material do you have in the works for Michael stuff, or are you just kind of waiting and seeing how this is received before you release anything else, or is that still just early stages?
There's only 7 of these things that ever will be. There's 7 songs basically. None of them have had official real release. Some of them have been heard in little bits and pieces in The Last Rock Star, but I was kind of careful not. They haven't had they haven't been distributed to stand on their own. So there's a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak, right now about what may happen and the best way to sort of move it all forward as a collection, hopefully. But to start with, I didn't want to just give it away. Like we had put it on, the normal sort of iTunes and Spot. Would have been here and gone in 48 hours, And
Yeah.
4 months into this thing, just getting going, man. Like we got a street date of the 10th of August for the red vinyl. There's seemingly demand to do a second run. Like, so it's just getting going. And again, the important thing here was more than anything was just to get something out, establish the credibility of the whole thing. And again, start that conversation in people's minds about Michael's greatness and like shifting that sort of final narrative, shifting the perspective back to and the focus back to just the performer, the artist, the front man. Help a little if you can help a little bit with the snowball was sitting out at the top of the mountain to get it, just a little poke to get it rolling and help with that. Jim, the guy who's doing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame campaign, is really, really cool. I mean, there's a great community of sort of in the Facebook community, especially the fan administrators that administer the fan pages. And they've all been, I've sort of had communicating with them over like 15 years now. So they've all been really supportive. And just, again, giving the fans, listening to the fans a little bit, seeing what they want. That's why we're doing the CD. They wanted it. They asked for it, and trying to give them a voice in this. And, like I said, help to, allow Michael to take his place where, he rightfully deserves to be recognized, as
Well, I
one of the
think,
all-time greats. And then the details will, that stuff's getting kind of worked out now, and I'm trying to kind of figure that out. But there's no plan, it's just really wasn't. It's pretty.
well, I think it's great.
Getting my ass.
I think it's great. It's great. No. I think it's great to hear it. I love the songs, and I can't wait to hear what you have next. I think you really have given him a platform to show what made him so special and why he is still an icon. So I thank you for doing that for fans, because it's really nice after all these years to hear something new from him again, new for us at least. So thanks for that.
And I appreciate that. And like I said, I'm pretty confident people aren't going to be disappointed. And again, it's all about ultimately, keeping. There's a standard that they, Michael and INXS said. I mean, I always said it's hard for us to find crappy INXS record. They set a very high bar, and there's no point in just trying to put some stuff out for the sake of it if it's not going to, at the very least, don't get a little leeway because it's, but it's got to be at a certain level. We've seen that happen recently where certain bands have released stuff that, if there's even a debate, there's no room for that because it would undermine the whole spirit of why it's being done. And again, it all begins and ends with, there's a lot of it's egregious that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at this point, but there's a reason. And there's a lot of reasons why. And if we can just, like I've said, if you can help to just kind of put a little happier ending on a story that didn't really have one, and just help to shift, the perception and the perspective around Michael, and remind people again why he was so famous and why so many people 30 years later still have so much passion, are still inspired by him on so many levels. Just go look at the Facebook community. There's hundreds of thousands of people, and they're still mad. They're still feeling it. So, but that's ultimately the best reward, is what you said. Just that people are enjoying it, and it's hitting them the right way.
No, absolutely.
Not easy in this world too. I mean, let's be honest. Everything now, it's like going negative. It's hard to do something positive and even get any attention for it. So, applaud for Michael and his voice, and again, the passion he inspired in people, that it's being received this way. And it's, like I said, it's got some staying power. Like talking to you now 4 months later, and it feels like it's just beginning from the initial sort of announcement. So it's good. It's doing what hopefully I hope it would do, but even more so.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear what you have next. But I appreciate you talking to me today about this. I hope you have a lot of success with this, and yeah, I can't wait to hear more. But I just want to appreciate your time today, and thank you for your passion for Michael. And yeah, thanks for everything. It's been really, really enjoyable talking to you.
Likewise, man. Thanks, Michael.
Many thanks to Danny Saber for taking the time out to talk today. As previously mentioned, the single One Way with the B-side Save My Life will be released August 9th on 10-inch picture disc via Boss Sonic / Deko Entertainment. And as promised, we're closing out the show with One Way, which is a must-hear for any Michael Hutchence fan. It's really special hearing new material from him, so I think you're really going to enjoy it. Until next time, stay safe and stay sane.
Let's take a big cargo freedom and drive it around. Take all our friends, rich and poor, mess up this town. If you got the lust for wonder, just let yourself in. We'll keep you safe from morality, so let us begin. There's only one way to do it. Do it. Kick it. Kick it. Kick it. Kick it. Kick it around. Well, there's kickers and there's killers, but you don't know the names. It's a universal problem, so take in a stand. I'm gonna climb a mountain that's bigger than me and fly down to get you, make you see what I mean. There's only one way to do it. Do it. Kick it. Kick it. Kick it around. Kick it. Kick it. Kick it around. Kick it. Kick it. Kick it around. There's only one way to do it. Do it. Kick it around.
He was a very visionary person. He had an incredible imagination. He was a prolific dreamer.
Let's take a big cargo freedom and drive it around. Take all our friends, rich and poor, mess up this town. If you got the lust for wonder, just let yourself in. We'll keep you safe from morality, so let us begin. There's only one way